Okay, this morning I'd like to look at one of the funniest flat earthers I've ever seen. This guy calls himself Mr. Thrive and Survive, and he obviously doesn't understand anything about communications and is trying to put things together that he just knows nothing about. Let's take a look at this.
The National Security Agency, the NSA, before becoming a whistleblower after discovering the elements of the data monitoring program he helped develop.
Actually, I'm going to run forward on this so you don't have to listen to the whole thing. This is a whistleblower from the NSA who is on Fox News, and he talks about how they monitor fiber optic taps and for telephone calls for United States citizens. And Mr. Thrive and Survive
absolutely, yeah, with no warrant or no.
Think that this has proves that satellites don't exist, even though this guy doesn't understand that domestic cell phone towers don't use satellites. They're mostly connected together with fiber optics and terrestrial microwave links. Let me try to go forward here until he starts talking about it. And then what's interesting, he does show a satellite cell phone that's made by the company that used to be owned by Motorola. I can't think of who bought them out, but they are coming up with, they do have satellite cell phones that you can use anywhere in the world. They're guaranteed to be used anywhere as long as you have a clear view of the sky. But I think it's amazing that all of these people think that cell phones use satellites, regular cell phones that we all use. There's no way you could have enough channels to be using satellites for everybody in the United States to be communicating through satellites. Let's take a listen.
Thrive and Survive. You just watch a 36-year veteran of the National Security Agency all but tell you that all the wireless transmissions that we have, wireless cell phones, forgetting all the other data that's done wirelessly, we have all kinds of things wirelessly today. It's all being captured. And where is it being captured? In fiber optic lines. Now they want you to believe that your cell phone goes to a cell phone tower, gets transmitted up to a satellite, and that satellite...
Absolutely not. I don't know where he gets this ridiculous information. It's very, very rare that domestic cell phone towers would be transmitted up to a satellite unless it's in such a remote area, such as in Alaska in the mountains or something, where there's no way to do a microwave link to another cell tower. This guy knows absolutely nothing about domestic communications in the United States.
Like then transmits it down at, I guess, a receiving station, and so on and so forth. The problem with that is people that think satellites actually exist up there are many, actually. I just fairly recently was in a part of Arizona near the Grand Canyon, in the northeast part of the state, though, near the Four Corners area, near a little town called St. John's, just north and east of there. Really no man's land. And when I was speaking to the real estate agent there, because I was looking at a piece of property, I was wondering, why I had no cell phone data. And he said, well, I have cell phone data.
You probably didn't have cell phone data because there wasn't a cell phone tower in the area that was compatible with your type of cell phone. There are two different types of cell phones, and they use different types of data transmission. And if they're not compatible, I believe AT&T uses one different type, and I believe one of the other companies like Sprint or Verizon or something uses another type. I'm not sure which uses which, but you can Google it and find out all about this and find out why your cell phone doesn't have coverage in that area.
Because they just put up a T-Mobile tower within so many miles of this where this property was located. So that he said that was pretty much the only one that worked there. And I said, what about satellite communications? He said, oh, well, ever since they did that, people can use satellites too. Interesting. They couldn't.
How do people use satellites unless they have, say, DirecTV or something like that? Or a cell phone that is a satellite phone. Actually, satellite phones are not cell phones. Let's be clear, because cell phones are designed to be used on terrestrial communications. These guys don't know what they're talking about. It's so funny to listen to them.
Couldn't even use satellites there until T-Mobile put something close enough to where T-Mobile customers could have data reception. Now, the way they fool you with these so-called satellite antennas and phones here is they just have a much better external antenna, which allows you to reach cell phone towers, which are...
Now, this is real funny because a satellite telephone can be used in the middle of the ocean or anywhere in the middle of the desert, nowhere near a cell phone tower. It is guaranteed to work over the entire globe, which these guys do not believe in. This is so funny, it's hilarious.
Farther away. You don't have to point them at a certain area of the sky or any kind of nonsense like that.
No, you don't have to point them at any point in the sky because the satellites are low enough in orbit that they can pick up an omnidirectional antenna. It's basic communications, basic microwave communications that these people don't understand at all.
And you will get a signal when others don't. So I will leave a link to the entire whistleblower, NSA whistleblower video that you just watched. He goes on to say that all the data in the world is captured through these fiber optic cables, fiber optics, not through satellites being transferred back and forth. How does it go?
I haven't listened to what this NSA guy says, but I can guarantee you that not all data goes through fiber optics. Some of it goes through satellites. Satellites, these flat earthers don't understand it. Satellites are not the greatest thing for point-to-point communications. That's the most expensive way to do it. It's much cheaper to use fiber optic cables, even under the ocean, for point-to-point communications. Where satellites are best is broadcast communications, such as DirecTV, where you uplink one signal and thousands of people need to pick it up. Or you uplink a network like NBC or ABC or Fox News, and it's broadcast to all their stations so they can transmit it. That's where satellites work the best. However, it is used for some point-to-point communications. In fact, if you look at gas stations, some of your major gas stations, you will see a satellite antenna sitting up on top of it to process the credit card from the pump. That uses what they call HughesNet, which was the old Howard Hughes company, and they uplink it to a satellite they own and downlink it. It's an internet service that's allowed, and many credit cards are processed this way because they're short transactions and don't require a lot of time on the satellite.
Go from a satellite into a fiber optic cable. And you compare this and add this to the previous threat that supposedly Russia was going to have on the United States by cutting the underwater cables that went across the Atlantic.
Yes, if they did that, that would cut out most of our point-to-point communications and much of our internet service. That's correct.
Ocean, where they admitted that through those underwater cables that lie on the bottom of the seafloor, over 95% of all communications in the world travel through.
That's correct, because it's much, much cheaper than using satellites. And the other 5%, these idiots don't want to admit, is satellite. But satellites are very expensive.
So what kind of data are satellite handling? It's not the other 5%. The other 5% are through landlines from country to country, from state to state, from block to block. That's
landlines. That's fiber optics, you idiot.
the other 5% that goes into local data storage and things like that. There are no satellites. Listen.
I beg to differ with you. I used to work in the satellite industry, and I can guarantee you they're satellites. We track them with radar. We communicate through them every day, so forth and so on. And even your DirecTV is coming in from a satellite, believe it or not. And if you don't believe me, move the antenna and see just exactly how critical pointing that antenna is.
Listen to this guy again. Go back and listen to the video again carefully. And this, inadvertently, he's telling you there is no satellites involved with data collection from wireless devices.
Believe me, the NSA also monitors all satellite communications. I can guarantee you that.
Wireless devices are not using satellites. Never have, never will.
Most of them don't, unless you have a satellite phone.
And it might take a little bit of intelligence to get that out of watching this video.
A little intelligence out of watching this video. Flat earthers amaze me when they talk about intelligence.
Listen to it, think it through, and I think you'll get it. Guys, for whoever was the last person that donated to Patreon, I was very pleasantly surprised. Thank you very much. God bless you. I was...
Okay, this is something that amazes me about flat earthers. One of the funniest is the Morgile, who can't seem to make a house payment and is always getting evicted, but can't get a job and has to get money on YouTube. And it sounds like what this guy's doing too. They try to make a living broadcasting on YouTube instead of going out and getting a real education and a job. Greatly
appreciative of that. I still have not drawn any funds out of Patreon, but that's about to change because I'm about to be doing more and more videos, guys. I think I'm finally to the point where I've got certain things under control in my life. More explanation on that later. So more and more videos will be forthcoming. So again, I'm not going to spell out the whole thing for you. Watch it again. See how it's impossible for this data. You know, how is a satellite capturing your data when you're inside a building?
It's not capturing your data when you're inside a building. Cell phones go to cell towers, which are connected with fiber optics and terrestrial microwave links in most cases.
Using your cell phone. And how many satellites would they need to have, and how many signals would they have to double, triple, and quadruple up at the very least to get it to a station that's going to take it in and throw it into a fiber optic system? These satellites do not exist. We have geostationary balloons. That was another story you can...
Geostationary balloons. Now that's hilarious. So I guess they launch these balloons, and when the wind blows them, they launch another one, so it's in the place of the other one, and they switch over to that one so that all your DirecTV antennas are always pointed at the same place. Wow.
Coupled with this, when the balloon in Aberdeen, Maryland, when its tether snapped and it fell in a little Amish farm in Pennsylvania, the entire...
Oh, he's talking about the radar balloons that they have. Wow.
Our military was aghast because that was leaving us vulnerable to Russian-based satellites. We could not...
leaving us vulnerable to Russian-based satellites.
Tell if they were coming towards us, because that's what the function of that balloon was at Aberdeen, along with others strung up and down the East Coast.
No, the function of the balloon is to look for incoming aircraft or missiles in case of wartime. They have radar antennas in those balloons, and the reason they use balloons, let me explain to you flat earthers, Pizza Planet people, is that the Earth is curved. And because of that reason, the higher the radar antenna is, the farther it can reach. Because planes or missiles can be fired so that they fly what they call under the radar, which means they're below the curvature of the Earth to the radar antenna. That's the reason we have AWACS planes, and the higher you mount the radar, the farther it's going to reach. It's because of the Earth's curvature.
Of the United States and elsewhere in the northern parts, in particular of the United States, looking for Russian missiles that could come over the poles. There is absolutely no need for any blimp to be looking for satellites whatsoever.
They're not looking for satellites. They're looking for missiles.
If you have satellites, you don't have a need for the blimps. And yet they were freaking out. And they were freaking out when the Russians were hovering over these underground cables, where just freely and openly to the public, because nobody questions anything, because everybody's dumbed down and doesn't question anything.
Everybody's really getting dumbed down because of the internet and people like this that keep spreading ignorance and make kids not want to go to school and study science and study technology and become good engineers. China is going to be the next world leader in technology and in economics simply because they're teaching their kids the STEM subjects, and we're doing idiocy stuff like this on the internet, and our kids are listening to it and believing this crap.
That is said that 95+% of all data, this is not my numbers, this is the numbers given in articles, go through all these fiber optic cables.
Absolutely. The other 5% is satellites. I think that's enough of this guy. Have a good day.